So today I'm going to be sharing about my biggest challenge that I am currently facing in my job role today. I'm fairly certain that the biggest challenge that I'm currently facing is the challenge that many of you are facing as we transition into this new era of teaching, which is navigating e-learning. I understand that for some districts, it's paper packets. For some districts, you have steering committees who are providing all materials. In my district, we are one-to-one. So the expectation is that as a contracted teacher from 8 to 3, I am still delivering instruction online. And that looks like instruction that I'm preparing myself for my students, placing most emphasis on engaging the students in reading and writing. And while we are not assessing or grading, and that our main goal is just to make sure that they are staying engaged with learning, we are still challenged to make sure that we're reaching out to each student. And so when I look at this overall issue, I feel like there are many issues that kind of fall under the umbrella of transitioning into e-learning. One thing that's kind of weighing heavily on me is how can we provide equitable e-learning instruction? How can we make sure that the kindergartner in our district is still receiving the same level of instruction that maybe a 12th grader would? And so there were 3 ISTE standards aligned with this challenge. The first being that we advocate for equitable access to educational technology, digital content, and learning opportunities to meet the diverse needs of all students. That we model for colleagues the identification, exploration, evaluation, curation, and adoption of new digital resources and tools for learning. And then finally, we use technology to create, adapt, and personalize learning experiences that foster independent learning and accommodate learner differences and needs. Like I mentioned before, this feels like a large umbrella where there are a million tiny problems underneath. And so to kind of organize my solutions that I proposed, I organized them by the standard that I felt like it best aligned to. So starting with the first standard, advocating for equitable access to technology. What that looks like is making sure, yes, we're one-to-one, but as when that kid logs into that desktop computer and they access their e-learning, are they receiving the same instruction or the same level of instruction as another kid in the district? And so what that would mean is creating a criteria of success, especially for our educators, with information including what is the expectation for your delivery. If we are all teaching Eureka Math, but second grade is expecting them to be participating in doing exit tickets through OneDrive, while kindergarten, it just looks like watching an instructional video. How can we make sure that we are all on the same level playing field of how we deliver that instruction so that we don't have gaps later on when they return in the fall? Time allocations. Our State Department of Education had given out time allocations, but what does that realistically look like when we put them in front of a computer? There are some kids who have parents who are essential personnel in the military. I work on a military post. And so they're not able to sit down and work with their child. We have a lot of people in our community who don't have the privilege of being quarantined with their kids. They're considered essential and they need to go to work. And so how realistic is it to expect a blocked out schedule for that child? Not very. And so how can we provide time allocations? How can we provide tasks that are appropriate to those students? And then finally, acceptable programs of usage. As teachers, we try to hoard every resource we can underneath the sun, but then we run into the issue where one classroom has an account for books while the other classroom has an account for Epic. One classroom has an account for Freckle while the others is on Prodigy. And so making sure that we have a menu of choices for all students to access as far as tech resources so that we level the playing field for all kids. And we make it simpler for those parents who have multiple kids in one school under one roof. We want to make sure if they're all attending Morris Hill Elementary, that kindergartner logs on and they see something that's similar to their 4th grade brother just to help out that parent through this transition. The next standard that we're going to hit on is modeling for colleagues the identification, exploration, and evaluation of new digital resources. As educational leaders in this program, we are probably people who are drawn to creating instructional tools, especially instructional tools that align with technology. And so this is kind of a task that falls upon educators like us. As a district, what can we do? We can provide pre-made scope and sequences for teachers. What power standards should we be hitting so that they're prepared for the next grade level? And how long should we linger on those topics so that we feel prepared for the next year. We can prepare lesson materials, making sure that students have access to lessons that are equitable across the board. We can provide a means of communication. We're running into the same issue as far as digital resources, where some teachers want to use Dojo, some use email, and then others just prefer face-to-face contact, and they've never downloaded some sort of tech app, and they're kind of forced to find a way to communicate with parents via distance. And so making sure that we level the playing field and using our e-learning platform as a way to also communicate with students and families. And then finally, providing hotspots for students and teachers that do not have at-home access. We've had to push back our first day of school so we can make sure that we check out and hand out hotspots for families so that they can engage and participate with this new learning model. The last standard is making sure that we can use this technology to then meet the needs of all students. It's in our objective as a district that we work to meet the diverse needs of all students that we serve, as is a similar objective that I'm sure for many public school systems. And so how can we make sure that we are providing access to instruction that is fair for all exceptional children? What that looks like is amending our IEP plans to fit this new e-learning plan. In lieu of 20 minutes in the classroom for a speech pathologist, maybe that looks like breakout sessions with a child. Making sure that we provide paraeducator access to students while also legally protecting our paraeducators. We feel that it's unwise to put an adult in a situation where they're in a one-to-one video chat with a child. So making sure that we schedule them so it's two paraeducators in that chat room, or perhaps they're in a breakout session with a small group working on a skill. And then also access to our ESL services. As teachers, we're tasked to either do live lessons or pre-record lessons. Because I mentioned that we have some wonky schedules with our families in the district, and not all are going to be available to be there for their students during that day. My team partner and I found it most appropriate to pre-record our lessons and provide them for our families. And so that also means that we need to pre-record our lessons, send them to our ESL department so that they can then be translated so we can pass those along to families so that they can participate in a language that they're comfortable with and a language that they understand. I understand that this is not all of the issues that fall under the umbrella of providing equitable e-learning, but as we navigate this together, I'm sure more issues and more solutions will pop up frequently. I'm excited to hear about what are some plans that your district has in place. I think that as a program, we are especially called to be those educators to help with this transition, and so I wish everybody luck finishing this program and finishing this school year.